comrade. January 6th, none dare call it justice. It's a story of a man who refused to accept the injustice of the Biden administration's Department of Justice and Democrats during the attacks launched against conservatives in the wake of January 6th. Treniss, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Good to be here with you. Nice to see you again. Just a week out from, 2 weeks out from when I saw you last, which is, it's been a while between visits, but nice to have seen you in Vegas.
Yeah, that Bondgate was pretty amazing insights. And you spoke and you were absolutely amazing. And I got to meet you and we talked a little bit, but wow, incredible event.
Well, yeah, it was a great event. Thanks to those guys for putting on a fantastic event. Matt, Mac, and Juan, and those guys just do a great, outstanding job. They just keep coming with the very important topics. But, that topic had a lot to do with whistleblowers, what happens to them, how they're marginalized, how they, get run off the rails, if you will, by the system, the processes, the punishment. We keep hearing it, but we provide these real world examples of cases like this on a regular basis. And I'm sad to say we have so many of them. We have, at Condemned USA, we house quite a few cases like that, whether it be the Shayna Gaviolas or the Tina Peters or Patrick Byrne. The people that have stood up and fought back against the machine have experienced an unprecedented amount of attack. And, whether it comes from the civil actions of the hard left that works in, concert with what once was their controlling DOJ apparatus, systematic wealth extraction machine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just still baffled. I could almost see it if they're like, hey, we can't get to all these injustices and go backward. My question is to Todd Blanche and once Pam Bondi, the question I've been asking is, why are we watching prosecutions and persecutions ongoing under this administration? And I'll illustrate one case, if you don't mind, Jaco. I just want to share with you that Shayna Gaviola is a case that if you're a parent, or you care about children, or you believe in religious liberties or parental rights, which I think is consistent with the vast majority of Americans.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have this ludicrous left that has this ideology that you don't have any rights, that the administration, the school, will take over and be the controlling interest. And it's not an attack on Pam Bondi. It's not an attack on Todd Blanche. It's a request. Well, I say two ways. It's a request that you listen and a demand that you uphold your oath. That oath was to the United States Constitution, i.e. the people, that you would uphold, for the people and carry out justice, et cetera. The injustices that are happening on their watch, and I know they can't be aware of everything, so I ask that they listen, and we're getting some good communication. Hopefully it's going to improve, that they listen to these matters. Like when Shayna Gaviola was prosecuted, there was a holdover from the Biden-era administration, and this is still going, that they have to right these wrongs. And, Gateway Pundits covered it. Real America's Voice has covered this case a number of times. We're covering it all the time on my show. And, you're giving us an opportunity to talk about that kind of injustice now. But when a parent says to the school, hands off, no, we're not doing any of these things, whether it's transitioning or whatever it was, which in this case, the mother states that they were trying to transition the child. And from what I've seen, it's certainly concerning. And it doesn't really matter, because if the mother wants to take the child from the school, her 15-year-old son from the school, and send him to a Christian school in Missouri, I don't know what right the administration, the state of California, whomever has to stop her. There was no order, custody order. She had custody. She and the father, who she's estranged with, still communicates with, I guess, but they're divorced. They agreed to this course of action to send the child to the school. And the Biden era, Merrick Garland's DOJ, had the FBI raid the school, had the mother arrested, and she was simply trying to protect her child. She had that right. And whether the child agrees or not, if I tell my child they're going to rake in the lawn this weekend, I don't care if you agree or not. That's what we're doing, right? The same as if I say that, you're going to get grounded if you don't make at least C's, right? Or, your allowance is going down if you're not making A's and B's. Whatever the stipulation is that a parent delivers within reason that's not abusive should be the right. But what they've done is they've twisted the moral fabric to manipulate the matter into that it's an abuse against the child, an affront to the child's rights, when the child wants to do something, the parent says no, i.e., take medications, to transition, whatever. That can't stand. We can't live in a country like that where it's an administrative state rule. And that's a very big concern that we have at Condemned USA. It's what we're working on. These are the kind of battles we're fighting, not to mention the Tina Peters, Patrick Burns, and others. But I don't want to go on a monologue here and leave you out of your own show. I apologize. I know you're a guy with a lot to say, and I appreciate your voice. So please.
No, I love it when a guest like yourself just like goes down those rabbit holes and starts revealing. So I'm reading your book. It's excellently written, very, very well done, Treniss. I got engrossed right from the first sentence. I was like, wow, this is really, really good. So great presentation, great example of what the Department of Justice, the FBI were doing, SWAT teams, all that crazy stuff. You, right from the beginning, you started standing up for yourself. And I think that really made an impact.
Yeah. There was a time when it started that I was like, okay, what do we do here? Do we keep our head down and shut up and try and, I went to see a former federal prosecutor who's a defense counsel that was recommended by my business attorney. I've never had a criminal attorney. So, in my adult life, I'd never done anything that I thought was warranting a criminal prosecution. Yeah. I may have done some stupid shit as a kid, excuse my French, but I may have done some stupid crap as a teenage boy that I'm like, whoo, glad I never, no one was harmed, I don't remember any property being destroyed or anything of that nature, but, adolescent nonsense. But watching what happened, I just from the start, it was the truth. They were coming at me with a lie in the very beginning. And a SWAT team raiding my home after they had been to visit me. I was like, you got to remember, the FBI literally shows up. I'm out. There's a mother that's dropping off a child. She was dropping off a couple of young girls here. I think my son's friends, they were probably preteen or tweens, as they call them, right? Yeah. In that realm. And she wanted to make sure that there was a parent home, that she wasn't dropping her, tween daughters off in an unsupervised environment with teenage boys. Good on her, right? Good. That's what we do as parents because, i.e., we're responsible for them. So, the unique response of twistability or twist on responsibility, This accident's been a little rough on me with I misplaced some words and have a little bit of a hard time, but there's a unique twist on that responsibility that this is what I was talking about. This is juxtaposition. The Biden administration would tell you that you don't have the ability to take control of your child. That's up to the state, right? They're totally in charge of the decision. Unless your child takes your gun, and then suddenly you become responsible for their actions. Or unless your child's not attending school, then you are responsible for the truancy and can be held accountable. Unless your child commits a crime or an offense with your vehicle, then you can be held accountable. Or on your property, then you can be held accountable. So there's a juxtaposition, the shift of moral code and responsibility when it comes to how they administered justice and how they view it, the left, right? If your child wants to transition, that's their rights. You have nothing to say about it. If your child wants to do whatever else, you're responsible for their actions. But you lose the responsibility for their actions and the ability to control actions as soon as it becomes an issue that is at the forefront of the insurgency that operates within our country, i.e. the Democrat Party.
Yeah, and you outlined that very well in the beginning of your book. The Department of Justice, horrific the way they came in and timed it as you and your wife are going to go to your father-in-law's funeral home to do an observation.
Viewing of the body, yeah.
And your son was being held at gunpoint outside your door as they're coming up to arrest you.
Yeah, those videos, we put those out in the documentary Bloody Hill. We put them out other places. I think I've seen it in so many documentary films, that image of my 13-year-old son. Here's a boy, typical 13-year-old boy, headed to school in a pair of basketball shorts and a T-shirt, whatever it is, SpongeBob or who knows, headed out the door to school with a backpack on, 13 years old, innocent as the day is long. And here you are with, all of a sudden there's automatic rifles pointed at the child, and you're thinking, these people are looking for another Waco. They are seeking another Ruby Ridge. That's what we have here.
Wow.
That, over a misdemeanor, what ultimately is resolved with a misdemeanor. You're raiding my house as if I'm, I could hear them. Look, Jaco, I know what you did in your history. And I hear these guys going through the house and yelling clear. And, it's like, if they put this much effort into, actually hunting criminals and traffickers and so forth, then I think they would have been a much better administration under Biden. But unfortunately, they spent all of this time. And I think, I always I think it's hard to get away from the idea that we were political fodder. We were just part of the get Trump machine. And I think that the Merrick Garland institution under the Department of Justice needed a Ruby Ridge or a Waco so they could point to that and say, see, we told you so. These people are violent people. But they never got it. They got a bunch of guys that walked out the door going, what are you doing? Don't hurt my family. Why is this happening? What's going on? And time again, SWAT teams and efforts. And there was a lot of DOJ, FBI that refused to do it, that just said, no, we're not doing it.
Good for them.
And those that refused were retaliated against. They got passed over promotion. That we saw that, we had Delray Beach on and many others that went through these things that said, hey, wait a minute, we have murderers and real terrorists and child traffickers, and these, we're working on crimes of moral turpitude. I'm not interested in chasing around some grandma that walked into the building and prayed for the officers and walked back out. If you want us to do a raid on someone that assaulted law enforcement, okay, we'll take a look, but we're not doing this. And the pushback got them in a lot of trouble. They were pushed out, ostracized, and that's where senior executive services comes in and presses people like this out. And then they ask for an investigation as a whistleblower, and the inspectors generals don't do their job because they're bought and paid for activists as well. So you don't have a remedy out here. There is no remedy unless the Department of Justice makes admissions. That's about all we're going to get. And I think what you see with the recent prosecutions happening in D.C., the attempts that Harmeet Dillon and others have made at making prosecutions stick for people, they can't get it. So a guy throws a sandwich at Secret Service, that's not assault or a 231 obstruction or any of these things, right? None of these. It doesn't fall under any of that. All of a sudden, that's an acquittal. Everybody's fine. But a Proud Boy throws a half-empty water bottle that doesn't hit anyone, that lands 15 feet short of a police line, and he's convicted on assault and he's convicted on obstruction of justice. So this is the mentality of the hard left that operates within D.C., and you're not going to change those people's minds. So the convictions, I don't think, are coming, which is why I think the DOJ has the responsibility to open the files, let the American people see, allow the court of opinion to see how bad this really was with the January 6th prosecutions, open that file, let people see, make the proper admissions, and let these people file the proper claims, and stop fighting them on it. They know that this happened. Trump tells them all the time. The evidence is clear that people were admonished by this DOJ. They were targeted and attacked for political conservative viewpoints, and yet there's nothing's been done, and they're all still, and people are still dying. People are still taking, J6ers are still taking their life today. We just had one 7 weeks ago. So this is a real thing. It's very serious. Their lives have been destroyed. They're unemployable, and without having someone hardcore conservative. And even then, think about it. Then you got to have them, they still have to deal with the public or deal with sales or whatever it is. So people find their name, they Google search you. That's how we do things this day and age. And they can't get a job. They can't hold a job. It's happening all the time.
Yeah, and they targeted some people while they're having their children's birthday parties. Unbelievable. So it was obvious, an attack against conservatives by the Biden administration and Department of Justice and FBI.
Yeah, it's just like when they went after the school board parents, right? This trans woke agenda, et cetera, all of these things. It's all the same. It was very maligned, and I'm very sad to see that happened in our system of justice. And this is where people are like, oh, we got to get the credibility of the Justice Department back. Well, I've got simple words for you. Do the right thing regardless of the circumstances. It doesn't matter that you don't like someone. And, you know, I hear this all the time about the Department of Justice. Well, they're going to have to go through their history and, you know, kind of make sure it's someone they want to stand for. Every American should stand for every American when an injustice occurs. I don't care, like, for instance, if a person's civil rights have been violated. If we're going to be a country, a nation of laws, right? If we're going to be a nation of laws and we're going to follow up on that, we're going to do the right thing. If a criminal, whether they're a murderer or you know, somebody that, you know, jaywalked, they have rights and they have to be upheld. You can't break the law to uphold the law and call it justice. That's not how it works. They have to fulfill their duty and oath and do things operationally sound, consistent with the expectation of an officer of a court, and more so a prosecutor. And that's just not happening. And I know there's a lot to do and there's a lot to uncover and a lot to unpack. So my plea to Todd Blanche, and once Pam Bondi, but now Todd Blanche and whoever comes into that role, is remember that your duty is to the United States Constitution and the people, not to protecting an institution. The DOJ is a form of government, and its protection should only exist when it operates soundly. And when it didn't, they should be admitting this. They should say, this happened. I'm not saying that they're not. It's not an attack, but that is the responsibility. And I think a lot of people, what's drawing the ire of the court of public opinion, i.e. the American public, is simply they're not seeing the action. And I will give them a pass on the prosecutions because I don't think that you're going to get convictions in D.C. So they're going to have to find a nexus to another district for some of these cases and bring it in under something else to get it out of D.C. And I don't think people should be forum shopping, but unfortunately, you're not going to get any justice in the District of Columbia. We already see that. Anything that Trump's DOJ does, they're already thwarting, and they're not going to have it. So that's the answer, and that's where Todd Blanche is. I get it. It's a tough role. He has a lot of responsibility. However, again, it's really back to the basic core issue is protect the United States people, admit any wrongs of the Department of Justice, and move forward. And, you know, people like Jocelyn Ballantine shouldn't be in office, shouldn't be anywhere near a public office. And she's still there. If you remember, Jaco, that is the woman that carried the dirty dossier on Michael Flynn, knowingly. She knew that. She carried the dirty dossier to the court. And the rules of professional conduct for a prosecutor are even more stringent than they are for defense counsel. And as an officer of the court, she's just an absolute nut. She cannot be allowed to continue to practice law for the DOJ. At the very least, as far as I'm concerned, she should be disbarred. But not only that, she was head of the Capitol Siege Unit, investigative unit, prosecution, et cetera, et cetera. She was a head of that right under Matthew Graves. So she was like third in line to the comms on controlling that nonsense, and they knew what they did. And I think a lot of times the AUSAs that were involved in those cases, 3%ers, Proud Boys, et cetera, others, barring Mr. Nessler, who is an absolute horrific individual that should also not be practicing law. But from the Oath Keepers trial, people may remember Nessler, terrible individual. Any review of his record would show he has no more right or ability to practice law soundly than Jack Smith does. But you know, we've outed these people time and again, and as you get further in that book, you're going to find that I wrote about this. We put this out in a documentary film in 2022, exposing that we had over 140 federal agents in the crowd. We're not talking about CHSs, confidential human sources. We're not talking about these kinds of people that are paid informants or what have you. We're talking about actual federal agents, boots on the ground, and we knew they were there. And we had identified many of them. You know, Juan and I traveled the country showing videos to a lot of people like yourself that said, you may not have been one of them, but we showed them to a lot of people. And they said, I know this guy's a contractor. I worked with him in such and such. I was in the Sudan with this guy. I was in, you know, Belarus. I was here. I was there. Afghanistan, you name it, right? And over, we were able to identify people. And it was amazing how the Department of Justice, the FBI sat, and we watched Chris Wray sit on the stand and lie to Congress time and time again from this in his official position or capacity, and nothing's been done. But where are you going to do it? Washington, D.C.? Good luck. The same justice that the January 6 people have very little chance of finding justice in D.C. as well. And unfortunately, that's, you know, one of the places we're going to have to go to seek it.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, they came for you in Texas, which I'm stunned. I thought Texas wouldn't allow that in their state, but yet they did. You know, very, very disconcerting. What are your thoughts on that? And yes, I'm looking forward to getting deeper into your book, and find out more about how you get to the point where you don't even have a college degree in being a lawyer or whatever, but you're definitely you lawyered up yourself, and you're pushing all these different issues that are making these guys tremble at this point. I'm just stunned. It's absolutely incredible. Everybody should be going, wow, we got a real fighter here. Just like we saw the two pilots that went down in Iran, and they recovered them. Everybody's jumped up and down for glee. This look how great we are. America is. You're one of those guys, that's doing the great things.
Well, look, I never wrote the blank check that you guys did and served in the armed forces, and I certainly appreciate the service of you and all the people that make that happen, that make this world safe, so that at least we have a chance to fight about, to battle internally with our Department of Justice, and it hasn't quite become a full Gestapo police state. We're sadly encroaching further down that line. And I, can't fashion myself in a likeness to those individuals with that kind of bravery and courage and commitment and having written that blank check. So I will say this. I didn't start out with a goal, but, people have often asked, what would my message be to other people about this? And I just want to tell people that a regular person, look, the law is not incredibly complicated, right? The procedure, rules of procedure, and criminal court, and the standing, and everything about it, and whether it be civil or criminal action, it is different. And there's a lot to know, and I've spent the last going on 6 years now working on it. So I've got a hell of an education. I got an education with in all those trials that any law student or attorney from any major firm would love to have had, that experience. I mean, people were fighting to get to those cases, and I was able to see 600 plus of them in just 4 years. And I mean, to do all those trials, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, be involved at every level of investigations and have access to that, just trove of discovery. And what we were able to uncover and catch the government lying time and time and time again, committing Brady violations, committing violations of the court, allowing perjury, suborning perjury, whichever one happened, in numerous cases, and watching disingenuous testimony that they knew was a lie, they allowed that to happen. It only fueled me further, right? And it drove me. I started out by writing a document. Sean Whitson helped tighten that thing up at the end and do the site work for the citing for it. But, I did a lot of research and wrote a document called The Weaponization of Justice back in late 21, early 22. I think we finally released it. We delivered 535 copies of that thing to every member of Congress. I flew. I didn't trust that it would get there any other way, and I went there and I walked the halls myself and deliver all day, pulling this little, wagon, if you will, kind of thing, a little cart, and in the latter part of it. But I started off with a carry-on suitcase, and I put I don't know, I think I'd carry like 80 of them in that thing, and I would haul them around and go into offices. And can you imagine going into Nancy Pelosi's office and, hey, I'm Treniss Evans from January 6th, and I need to give you that, get out, terrorist, I'm like, oh, it was funny. And then, Loudermilk actually jettisoned some resource when he was head of a committee, and he said, look, you guys need to keep a few of those boxes here. You need to store a few of these boxes of these things here. You don't have to go back and forth to the hotel daily to get them. Just bring them in. And they helped me get them in the building, like 3 boxes of these things, and to get them distributed. It was great. So we did get some help. There's people who are fighters out there. Marjorie Taylor Greene did a lot. I will say that Eli Crane, got involved. I was a little remiss that guys like Chip Roy really didn't get involved, and but he was too busy calling us MAGA fuckers and all that nonsense, and that was his words, not mine, by the way. It's just a quote. I'm disappointed in these things. I'm very disappointed in our members of Congress.
Isn't he running for Attorney General there in Texas now?
Well, I look forward to Ken Paxton dusting him off, or any Aaron Wayne. If Chip Roy ends up being Attorney General, I agree with a lot of what he does, right? Paxton's moved to the Senate race. I misspoke there for a second. I had to kind of rewind. That Paxton's been our AG for so long. But But when Paxton didn't help, I went to Paxton with the plan to help, stop the DOJ from doing what it was doing, encroaching on the rights and, this ridiculousness, and say, we have a right to a compact and treaty that we have, the treatise that we have for extradition. And they could simply tell the federal government, hey, we need to see these things and, weigh in on these charges before you let you have a Texas citizen. They have a right to do that. And, they could have done it. They could have protected their citizens. And that's why I put Ken Paxton up on billboards all across the country, and including Times Square. He was up on digital billboards. And I was saying, is he going to uphold his oath? And I never I like Ken Paxton. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan, right? I like it. But when a politician is not doing what I believe should be done, which I believe is the right course of action in upholding the law or protecting its people, I'm going to speak up. And I don't care if that's with the, massive state, nationwide billboard campaign and with Newark Times Square. And, we were able to get those billboards up. And, it's been, I think the Department of Justice and others have been very, I've been making very clear that we, the people, will have our voice. Look, I'm not going to come, stomp on your toe or, give you a wedgie or, give you a noogie or whatever they call it. That's not what I'm here for.
Right.
But I am going to make it known that we have a voice and that you're not operating correctly when these things happen. And it was my belief that Ken Paxton should have done more. And, January 6th was hyperbolic. Nobody wanted to touch it because it was so all over the board. But, calling it an insurrection was an absolute farce. It's disturbing. I mean, what an insurrection actually is and what they will label one as. And then they'll call, mostly peaceful protests when $10 billion, billions of dollars in damage are happening, over 50 lives are lost. That's mostly peaceful protest and social justice warriors, while January 6th is an insurrection.
Yeah. And they were calling it, the Pearl Harbor, and it was unbelievably ridiculous, which is great insult to all those that, survived that. So, yeah, I'm amazed that, they had the audacity to do that and think they could get away with it.
So it's very disturbing, very, very disturbing. I was looking, and I should have some laying around here on my desk, and I'm not wearing my pen, but I was going to show you these pens that you brought up, you said Pearl Harbor, which, I think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden regularly said it was like 9/11.
Yep.
And this is really good. I should go get it. I'll go get it for you. Oh, here's one right here. I knew they were right here. They just got buried I get busy. So these G6 Patriot flags. I don't know how I can see that. There we go. I'm messing it up. But these are that's that pendant that I wear, right?
Yeah, cool.
And they're really cool. So the story on that is I get a call one day from this guy. And he says, "Hey, my name's David Wolf." I said, "Okay." And he said, "I got referred to you by an attorney and a couple other attorneys." And he kept, and I said, "Well, how can I help you?" And he says, "Well, listen, I have all the 9/11 diamonds." I said, "What do you mean the 9/11 diamonds?" He said, "Well, I was the appraiser for Chase Bank after 9/11. That was the bank in the bottom of the World Trade Center." And he said, "Listen, it's a long story. A lot of things happened. A lot of people tried to claim jewelry, and we couldn't do it. We got like 11 claims on one piece and 26 on another, and nobody knew what." And he said, "So as all the rubble was sifted and everything came out of it, and he had all the 9/11 diamonds, and that was how they paid him." He said, I never could do anything with them. There was historical pieces, and I never knew what to do with them. And then when the Biden administration started calling this, saying it was like 9/11, I said, "No way, this can't stand." And he said, "I knew that was the right time." So he fashioned these things. I mean, they're cool as heck. So I have one. I think it's piece number 4 in this collection of like 113 9/11 diamonds. I think they still have more than 50 of them left. And there'll never be more. I mean, it's a piece of history. So they fashioned them with the loop is in the shape of a J and then a 6, right? If you look at it the other way. So they did them. They're all like Tiffany level construction. It's all platinum and white gold. And I mean, everyone stops me and asks me about this pin all the time. And the coolest part was they said, I want to give all the proceeds, all the profit to your organization, to the 501, so you guys can fight lawfare. I want you to help J6ers. And then after the J6 thing was over, I said, well, look, it's pretty much over. We're still fighting for some justice and some resolution to some of the injustice. But he said, no. He said, you guys have Tina Peters and all these other people and Patrick Byrne. He said, just you guys keep taking it. No way. And so that's really cool, is all the money ends up in the hands of where it needs to go to actually do something for this country. And so you turn to such a tragedy like 9/11 and January 6th and how it was positioned into a positive. And that's a beautiful man named David Wolf that does that. We have him on the website on Condemned USA, but they're very cool pieces.
Very nice, very nice. And yeah, your website basically, I was looking through that, and I'll pull it up here in a second. Definitely, you're supporting other people at this time, and the one guy, Arkansas State Senator John Woods.
Oh, yeah. It's a tragic case. John Woods, Arkansas State Senator John Woods. So the Office of Public Integrity, right, which was where Jack Smith was at the time, launched in. So to get this, John Woods comes out, and he's the first politician in Arkansas, I think he was a state senator in the state assembly, right, to support Donald Trump, right? He supports Donald Trump. How dare he, right? Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, a witch hunt is launched into him, this guy, Jeremy Hutchinson, and several others. And the claim is that they're violating public trust by taking monies and misusing the current, money, et cetera. But it wasn't that anything went in his pocket. They're saying, oh, you gave to this Christian college, this ecclesia college, but you were once on the, this guy you did business with is on the board. And so it's all to benefit them. It's a, scheme. And there was no scheme. What's interesting is they ran like a 2-year sting on this. And when they finally went to trial, the FBI Agent Cesario, was ordered to turn over all of the rest of the discovery. Now here you have another case of the government goes in, they hand over a bunch of videos and say, here's a discovery. And then one of them is not, the video is not there. They got a video, they got an extra video. They got a video that didn't match with the number. And they're like, well, why is there another video and we don't have a number for that? So the judge recognizes that there's potentially a Brady violation, i.e. the prosecution failing to turn over enough evidence or all of the evidence to the defense counsel. So the judge orders Agent Cesario to turn over his laptop, right, where all the original recordings were stored before they're turned over. He says, just turn it over to defense counsel. He takes the laptop and in classic Hillary Clinton style, goes to a professional computer place, has the thing wiped clean, right, professionally, and then goes home and proceeds to run 1 or 2 more bleach bit type programs on it to, wipe out the hard drive and the memory, and then turns it in. And this all happened. He's admitted he pled guilty to this. But interestingly enough, the Department of Justice never attempted to help John Woods, never delivered information to John Woods' attorneys on this. And it gets worse, Michael. The Department of Justice waited to charge and handle the case against Agent Cesario only because of all the public blowback, I suggest, or contend, I should say, but only because all the public blowback and the papers were demanding things, et cetera, et cetera. So they finally had to do something. And they still won't answer the FOIAs that judges have ordered them to answer long ago, Freedom of Information Act requests. They're still not answering those. And Agent Cesario pled guilty and got house arrest for all this destruction of evidence. And the problem is when a Brady violation occurs and there's destruction of evidence, the way it's supposed to work is that it's supposed to be recognized that was grounds for a mistrial, et cetera, except now we have judges who, amazing. They have a crystal ball into the mind of the jurors, and they can say, well, we don't think this is enough that it would have overturned it. But the whole problem is Brady shouldn't happen. It's not up to the judge to decide if it would have had an effect on the mind of the juror. And it's not up to the judge to decide whether or not it might have led to another line of questions for the defense counsel. What if they, hey, get this, let's do this, let's check into this guy, it's his legitimacy, it's a way. But they knew it would hurt them on the stand, it would hurt their case, so they bury the whole thing and that's what happened to John Woods.
And left him in jail. He's still in jail for 7 years now. He's
still there. This administration, I'm telling you, President Trump, I don't care who it is, Vance Day, Todd Blanche, somebody at the Justice Department, Jeremy Dillon, somebody wake up, grab a cup of coffee and get on this, because this guy has been sitting 7 years. And since I've been working with him now about 2 years, it gets worse, Michael. You're not going to like this, Jaco, but this is how it got worse. The neglect. He was in Bastrop Detention Center. It's a camp, low minimum, as low as you can go, bunkhouse kind of thing. And that's where he was doing his time. And he has not had no medical history, never asked to go. 7 years he's been in, never really asked to go to medical, no requests, just, updates and checkups, right? John Woods tells him he can't get out of bed. I can't go to work. He has this terrible stuff going on. He's just beaten up, can't get out of bed, can't breathe, has no energy. They ignore it. Here, have some aspirin, go back to bed. Have some aspirin and rest, aspirin and rest, aspirin and rest. This goes on for months. Finally, there happens to be a visiting cardiologist to the hospital. And somebody out there says, hey, you got to look at this guy. There's something really wrong. They're not treating him. He ends up getting seen by this cardiologist who's like, holy crap. They immediately rush him from the prison to a hospital, perform open heart surgery and put a pacemaker in, and say he's lucky he was still alive when they got to him.
Wow.
So he has a pacemaker. Not to say he might not have died had it not been for this cardiologist. And yet he's been transferred around, not given his medication, and all of this. This guy's like 47 years old, man. 47 years old. And they could have killed him over this. He shouldn't be there in the first place. Jack Smith opened a bogus investigation. It was politically targeted. It was an awful another affront to justice run by the, so-called Department of Justice, or Department of Injustice, as we should call them. And people like John Woods are still sitting in prison 7 years later. 7 years later.
No, so I can understand, the Clinton, lingering, fraud and all the bullshit that went on with the Clintons. But you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders in there now. Why isn't she getting involved in something like this?
I don't get it, right? This is out of Arkansas. This is one of your own. And, look, let's just play the devil's advocate and say the guy did do some of these things, which I really don't believe he's done. I went through the discovery. We're very careful. Peter Tickton's very careful with the cases he takes. And I'm very careful with what I advise him on. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. The money went to a college. That was the attack, a Christian college. People didn't like it. And they came after it, and that's what it is. It was an attack on Christian conservatism. Yeah. And it was an attack on a guy like John Woods who would stand up for Trump in the first run against Hillary. And I'll be damned, you wouldn't believe this. This guy is still sitting there, had a pacemaker, and they're looking into his prison history background. Oh, well, we don't know. We got to make sure there wasn't ever any fights or anything. I'm like, the left can pardon the people that literally. What was the woman that became head of the Black Lives Matter movement that they pardoned her, and she actually blew up, or she was part of the bombing of the Senate Heart Wing building of the United States Senate. What? And they don't have a problem. The left doesn't care. They have no problem with what they do. They're not worried about saving face. They're not worried about that. They know the papers will take care of it for them. But yet, here we go. We got to worry. We got to look back and make sure that he didn't not return a library book when he was in kindergarten before we can issue a pardon when you're on the conservative side of the aisle.
Wow. It's unbelievable. So I know you've helped a lot of J6ers and you're helping a lot of people now. What's your focus now? Do you think this is going to turn around? The justice system, do you think it's ever going to turn around?
If it doesn't, people like President Trump, yourself, me, and those that have been on the front lines of this are going to be very sorry that we did not force them to take a bold action and actually do something, because this idea that, we're just going to move on and we're going to do the right thing from here forward is a bad idea, in my opinion. It's a very bad idea. And the left gets back in, they'll immediately do what they do, watch them, they'll nuke the filibuster, pack the court, wield the Department of Justice again. I mean, the left, the Norm Eisens of the world are already drafting indictments and actions to take against people. Pam Bondi's now facing some kind of bar complaint nonsense out of, from being in her official capacity. What she does in her official capacity, the Bar Association can't do anything about. That's absolutely absurd. But yet here we are. We're back to immunity, qualified immunity. They'll have a strong application of it as long as you're a fentanyl addict, no good, home invasion, George Floyd type. Then that's all fine and dandy. We can, come after you, right? Or we will support you, and you're a victim. But yet a person like Shana Gaviola, John Woods, et cetera, Michael Castellero, and those guys over at Straight Path, Brian Martinson, Fran Lanai, that they're all criminals. These are the criminals. We got to get them. What sense does that make? You can't live in, you cannot have this two-tier justice system. They did it in Russia. They did it in China before the full communist takeovers. And that's what we're seeing here.
Definitely. Now, you and Professor David Clements, who both of you guys spoke at the same time, or one right after the other, and both of you were talking about what Abraham Lincoln did, basically suspend habeas corpus. Do you think that could be something that could really push things in the right direction?
You have no choice. I think the president has no choice, right? You want to win this war. You said you're going to come here and drain the swamp. You actually want to get something done. We're going to have suspension of habeas corpus. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to have to have military tribunals, and we're going to have to root out people that are breaking the law. We can't suffer another year without prosecutions for the Act Blue people. We can't suffer another year without corrupt DOJ people being held accountable. We can't suffer another year. It's too close to the end, I believe, for this country. We have made it a very glorious 250 years as of this year, as you know. But, the years before that really sanctified who we are as a people and what we're going to be as a country. We were very welcoming. But there was rules, there was some standards in place. And now here we are where we're lacking so much of that across the board. We just don't see enough. And we see the weaponization of the government carrying on today.
Yeah, I agree. I think the judicial system is so corrupt. It has to be some kind of suspension of their ability to step in and control our country. And
you're talking about absolute impropriety, bias, activists under the robe. Look, you have to look no further. You're going to find some of that in the book. But I wrote about Tanya Chutkan. Her grandfather, Frank Hill, was the leader of the Jamaican movement over there for the Communist Party, and a lot of financial analysts, other people I've seen that has been told to me, and I've read quite a bit about him. That many of people in Jamaica they blame him and say he's the reason for the financial collapse, right? You have this is the kind of thing that's consistent. And it's not just him. You have Judge Dabney Friedrich on the bench. She was my DC judge. Her husband was Michael Friedrich. He was the guy that carried the dirty water against Alaska State Senator Ted Stevens. So he does the wrong thing against Ted Stevens. Ted Stevens loses his race. By the way, that's how we got Obamacare. Ted Stevens was a big proponent against it. And they didn't have the votes without getting rid of him.
Wow.
And they got rid of him. Yeah, so we got Obamacare after you got rid of him, right? People don't know that. He was a key figure in stopping Obamacare and the centralized socialized medicine scenario. Yeah. And Ted Stevens was then ousted by a supposed campaign finance, which the court agreed eventually. They dismissed the case, but Emmett Sullivan, the judge, was in it. Michael Friedrich was the prosecutor on that case, the AUSA. And then shortly thereafter, his wife becomes a federal district judge in D.C. And the list goes on. I mean, I can do this for the next hour and a half with talking to judge after judge after judge.
I know your
sick.
mind is unbelievable when it comes to this. You're just like an encyclopedia. You just like start, boom, just like everybody just saw. It's like wham. So you've reached an incredible level now. So we're talking about the military tribunals. Would you be involved in something like that? How would that work?
I'd just like to volunteer to. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I want to volunteer to pull the lever and watch them swing. And I think there's a lot of people that would like to. Yeah, there's a lot of people would like to be there to pull that lever. Yeah. So I can share, but I just want my hand on the lever. At least once. I want to volunteer to be the hangman.
Yeah, and I've heard from people that are have just gotten the call to actually go down to Guantanamo to be potentially part of that. So it looks like it's moving that direction.
Well, I don't know what it's moving to. I don't like to speculate, and I agree. We have JAG officers that I know that have been called back up to active duty and placed in various places around the country. Something's happening. What it is, I don't want to speculate because I don't want to. I hate being that guy where it gets it totally wrong, and then 4 months later, nothing happened. I will say that the waiting game of "don't worry, it's about to happen. It's about to happen." I'm not with it. Not buying it. I don't think anything's about to happen. I think we're about to get a report. We're about to get some damage control for the image. And hopefully, maybe it was Pam Bondi was the holdup and Todd's now free to, march forward. Maybe that was it. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that, they're up for it, to move in that position. But you think that, Todd's going to be good?
Look, I think Todd has the ability to be good. I think we all have the ability to be good, right?
Right.
If you want me to speculate that Todd Blanche is going to be the go-getter, the firebrand, the fighter that we were looking for when we put up a Matt Gaetz or someone, I don't know. I haven't seen that out of him yet, so I can't. It's hard to say that when I haven't seen those kind of actions take place. I haven't seen Mr. Blanche. You do the job consistent with what the president ran on. And no, it shouldn't be political at the DOJ. I get it. But consistent with accountability. I haven't seen you really doing the big top line down work here. I believe you can, and I believe he will. And I'm going to support him still. I'm going to give him, a little more time. But at some point, the American people's patience wears out, and you just, we're going to have to move on and try something else.
Yeah, definitely. So your book bestseller, what do you have plans? Were you talking about another book, or do you have another book?
I do. I actually wrote something funny. You said encyclopedia. I actually wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of January 6th. It's sitting there, 240 something thousand words. It's just sitting there. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I haven't decided if I'm going to publish it. I've been leaving excerpts out of his breadcrumbs, I guess, if you will, sharing those within articles like Gateway Pundit or Real America's Voice, and providing it to news outlets, et cetera, and saying, here, take a look for yourself. Beat any fact in here. Challenge a fact in this book, and I'll give you an hour to draw a crowd and kiss your proverbial you-know-what. And no one's been able to find that. So that's where I'm headed.
Very good, very good. So your book now is on Amazon. And you get the website. Any other ways that people can reach you? Or
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get the book there. You can reach me. It's really simple. TRENISS@condemnedusa.com. Email's open. I listen to cases. We review these cases. We make determinations. We do legal or legislative strategy, civil defense, whatever it may be. And we crank forward. I believe we're on track. I do believe before the July 4th holiday's over, the Ticton Law Group, myself, will collectively have half a dozen pardons for J6, people, and not just J6ers, but people as a whole. I don't want to, try and label them as to which ones, but we have, we've said we have several on file now, and we need to have the ones we need that are really pivotal, where people are really facing some problems. Shana Gaviola goes to sentencing here in just a couple weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where, and that's, I've been supporting people for years in this fight. And, we're not wealthy people. We're just good, hardworking Americans. Things went well for us in business, and we were able to do some great things. But, you can wipe that out pretty quick when you fight the federal government for 4 years. Right. Endless resources to fire your own checkbook back at you as a weapon. It's sad.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. So Treniss, great honor and pleasure to have you on. Thanks a lot for coming in and sharing your insights. You're a patriot and a hero, in my opinion. So thanks so much for what you're doing.
Man, thanks so much, Mr. Jaco. Thanks for having me on. It's great to have you, be here with you, and it's been a nice conversation. And tell your wife I am working on that. I'm working on calling it a nation.
All right. Very good. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.